Making Nigeria great is the agenda every Nigerian must have, whichever area or position you find yourself. And that's why our first conversation this morning is around ease of doing business, by way of setting an agenda, so to speak, for the incoming administration. Nigeria is home to more than 39.6 million micro, small, and medium enterprises. These are the figures that government can point to. How about those others that may not be registered right now? You most certainly agree that there will be so many like that. So these comprises 96.7% of all businesses in Nigeria. Some 67% of these businesses are youth-owned. Yep. In 2022, MSMEs contribute more than 45% of the country's gross domestic product GDP, with 96.9% of these businesses in the micro cadre. They account for nearly 90% of the jobs made available nationwide. And that information, of course, you will get from the PEBEC office, which is headed by the Special Advisor to the President on Ease of Doing Business, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. So let's have a conversation around this morning, because the government is making some claims and Nasima is asking questions around those ones. Olubunmi Osuntui joins us this morning, Secretary General, International Chamber of Commerce in Nigeria, as well as Georgia Tomi, who is Principal Managing Partner, Georgia Tomi and Partners. He's also Director and Chairman on a variety of boards, including the Daily Times of Nigeria, EKDC, NBA, and the Nigeria Institute of Advanced Legal Studies. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Let me begin with you, madam, as they say, ladies first. Where really would you position Nigeria in terms of the ease of doing business? We know that those efforts were being made in the World Bank Global Ranking before, which over time has been suspended. But Nigeria seems to have sustained that ease of doing business platform or parameter, which has occasioned states being lined up in terms of awards for being the state with the best doing business parameters and all of that. But where will you place Nigeria in terms of ease of doing business? Particularly, which of the indicators would you say we're doing well? Which ones do you think we need to improve on?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. And I want to appreciate this opportunity to share my thoughts on this. I would want to say that, yes, indeed, in terms of policy developments, we are doing very well. It's one thing to develop policies. It's another thing to ensure that those policies are complementary and they are advancing the economy as a whole. You will agree with me with your introductory statement. In the course of the program today, there have been a lot of challenges on the part of MSMEs, SMEs, and the government actually needs to put actions to the policies that have been made to make life easy for the small and medium enterprises. Otherwise, we'll just be churning out a lot of policies and we won't have any specific thing to show for it. I will wish personally that the administration, whether incoming or outgoing, will do the needful to alleviate the pains being experienced by a number of these small and medium enterprises. I mean, let's just take the traffic. It's horrendous. It has dovetailed to every part of Lagos. You can imagine if, as an SME, you have a delivery, you're going for a wedding, and you are held up. You can't start having the party on the road. Neither can you deliver expected. These are infrastructure lapses in the environment. It's not really encouraging the SMEs and MSMEs. Just to cite an example.
Indicators, madam. But let me ask Mr. Tomi. she talked about policies. I'm pretty sure that you are aware many people complain about the fact that we have amazing policies, but we are challenged in the area of implementation. And it's not the president, nor the vice president, nor the minister, nor the people in the offices at the federal or state levels that will get the jobs done. It is the civil servants who are like the foot soldiers. How significant do you see that in the scheme of things?
Good morning, Ayo, and I always enjoy the work that you do. I'm glad this conversation is taking place. It's an agenda-setting conversation for the new administration. You're absolutely correct. We're not short on policies. We're not even short on the laws. It's the implementation. Incidentally, the PEBEC has done quite a lot of work in ensuring that the legal and regulatory framework exists to promote the ease of doing business. And today, the MDAs, under some of the new regulations, the onus is on them to ensure that when an application is made for anything, that it is treated within a defined period. And if it is not treated within that defined period, it is then assumed that the registration or whatever has been applied for is deemed to have been registered. The onus is now being shifted to them. So what MSMEs and all others seeking to do business should do is to make sure they get good legal advice when it comes to all these regulatory issues. The law now exists, and you must take full advantage of that law. So gone are those days when you do simple things like pass resolutions to increase your shares or get members onto your board, and you go to the CAC and you're just jerked around for weeks. Just simple registration. You are the one taking the business risk. But the guy who wants to make money simply because the law has positioned him to make money just bluffs you. Those days are gone. So hopefully, to translate to reality, MSMEs must be familiar with these new laws and regulations and ensure that they make optimal use of them. And let's, on the subject of legal and regulatory environment, we're talking about both inviting investments from abroad and from within. Any economy, the fulcrum on any economy is law and order. Law and order deals with issues to do with the rule of law, sanctity of contracts, enforcement of rights. So issues to do with even getting adjudication when you have a dispute. Today, look at what's going on with our court system. The court system is clogged up. Civil cases are a distant consideration now for priority. Political cases take priority, criminal cases, then a distant third will be civil cases. So you can just have simple, straightforward disputes, and you are on the queue for God knows how long. This is no way to encourage anyone who wants to do business, because the legal and regulatory regime should exist to engender people who are taking risks, to take those risks and be certain that upon the happening of certain events, this is the result. That is the way anybody plans. If you don't do that, it will increase the cost of doing business. And when you talk about the cost of doing business, many people find it difficult to relate how the bottlenecks we create in this legal and regulatory environment affects the cost of doing business. We're complaining about airfares being very high in Nigeria. Actually, it is because the Nigerian environment is perceived internationally to be high risk. You can't get your forex out. You can't you can't even get insurance in some cases for the risk that you want to cover. And the way many businesses cover it is to jack up prices. So it is the helpless citizen who pays for it. The flights out of Nigeria, go and look at the cost. You pay twice what you do averagely anywhere else. What people don't understand, it is because of the perception that doing business is so difficult in this environment.
But, Mr. Etomi, my apologies for butting in. This is not new in the practical sense of it. It would seem like these things have been happening over time. Would you place this at the behest of federal agencies, especially in terms of the regulatory authorities now, or state agencies? I know you're aware, for instance, that on the average we have something in the region of 30 or more taxes, federal, state, local government and all. So if the business environment is as caustic as you say it is, as high risk as you say it is, are we unaware of this fact? Is it something that's catching us unawares? Where are these bottlenecks that we can't just take out of the way?
First of all, straightforward, both the federal and the state governments are guilty here. And what has simply happened is that the state governments have taken a cue from the federal government. You know, when you impose taxes, levies, whatever, they should be imposed only when you have created an environment for the business you seek to tax is making profit. But in Nigeria, it is often almost punitive. Look at land. You want to acquire land. The only reason government is involved in land transaction is because the Land Use Act says government, you must go to government. Otherwise, it's a deal between two parties. But the guy who now sits to register the land, to give you leases, to do that, now gives you a string of payments you make ahead of the business you want to do. There's no businessman who comes up with that kind of a bill that will not pass it ultimately to the customer. So land in Nigeria is virtually dead capital, whereas everywhere else, land works for you. Many people get land, CFOs take you, God knows, 2 years, 3 years for you to get it. No bank is going to lend against that. And even when they finally lend against that, and they want to realize that security, is another bottleneck. So it's both on the state and the federal government. You talked about taxes. I think we've all lost count of what you have to pay for taxes. Some it's even some crude form. They just mount roadblocks and just simply extort money out of you. It's the facade itself is very disheartening. You are traveling from one state to another, and suddenly they put nails on the road. If you don't pay them, you don't go through. This is internal business. Movements, ask any haulage guy in the haulage business, moving goods from one state to another state. The several checkpoints that you get. There must be a conscious effort to clear all those things. What about the customs regime? I mean, customs regime, let the business thrive. But don't ask somebody who is bringing in agricultural equipment, industrial equipment, to pay you huge taxes before they even start the business. They should pay zero taxes and then just find some other way to tax their profits. The businesses must work because, like you correctly said in your statistics, the MSMEs altogether probably account for over 70% of the employments that are going on, not even government. But government cannot just sit there as a tax collector or as a gatekeeper and you are just sort of fleecing everybody. This today is the perception. So talking about agenda setting, it is important that that perception is taken away. I am glad that at the subnational levels, there are now indices by which you judge a performance by states. And we see that some states are doing a lot to attract investments to their territory. That should continue to be encouraged. But the overall optics as of today is not good, and we need to do something about it.
Let me switch to you, Madam. I know you may want to add a word or two to what you have heard Mr. Etomi said, but what I would like you to speak to after that is, again, back to the indicators. 2 of the 6 indicators, according to PEBEC, infrastructure and a secure and stable environment account for the biggest pain that micro, small, and medium enterprises go through, their biggest pain points, at a combined 41.1% of MSME dissatisfaction. You already mentioned infrastructure the other time, the roads being just one of several such. How do you think we can begin to reverse this trend?
I think the major suggestion I would give, I'll put on the front burner for us to discuss this morning, is the need for us to work in partnership. When I'm talking about us, I'm talking about private sector and government. It's very important to be able to work collaboratively. I actually feel that when we do this, like it's been done in other developed countries, you'll be able to sit at the round table and be able to agree on the modalities to advance the economy of our great nation. This nation has potential is not in doubt. We have great potentials, but I see that we work at cross purposes. All the taxes you are talking about, the issue of the customs, the issue in the banking industry, talk of any sector of the economy. There's a whole lot of overlapping of functions, and it shouldn't be. And for every institution of government, they already have targets. And proudly, they come to tell you that they have even exceeded their target for the year. The issue of advancing the economy is not only in meeting targets and advancing it and just amassing wealth for government. What have they done with this wealth? What have they done? What are the specific things that have been done in the economy to advance the ordinary person? What has been done to create jobs? Those who are creating the jobs, they are making life very turbulent for them. It is very, 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 it is very limiting, to say the least. It is very important for me. I would say that the first thing I'm going to put on the table is to see the private sector, whether the private sector is in the chambers or they are through the employer organization or they are through whatever group of people. It is very important to sit together and address some cogent issues that will help us to advance. And talking about the exchange rate and the cost of doing business, the need for government to address that is very, very evident. If you are exchanging a foreign exchange, if you are going into a business that involves international transaction and you will need to use foreign exchange, you can imagine how much you are going to exchange the amount of money, and how do you pass that even to the customers that you have. It could be very limiting and make things very difficult. It is very, very important to do something very urgently about the exchange rate that we have, apart from the infrastructure that I did mention before. Wastages in government is another area. Government needs, yes, we are paying taxes. People are paying taxes. But the taxes that they are being paid, what are we using them for? We are using them to nurture a few people that you can number them, and then they use it to live a larger than life at the expense of the ordinary Nigerians. I think this is the time for the incoming government to look into all of these excesses so that we can truly commit to the present and the future of Nigerians. We talk about foreign relationship. How can we have our people in Sudan and then they are sleeping in open air, life is miserable, and they are calling for help? And then I know that they are making effort, but they must advance this effort. Everybody must advance this effort. And the effort should not be limited only to government. Like you rightly said, those who have private jets, whoever is able to provide any support or to make life easy, we should continue to do that. And then one other thing I want to say is that we don't need to be reactive. It's important to be proactive. We know that the issues, right from the time that the issues are coming up in Sudan, it is very important for those in the authorities to have made necessary arrangements. It is not when they start sleeping on the road or when their life is exposed unnecessarily that we are taking the concerted effort that we need to take. I know that the country is doing so many things at the same time at this point in time, but the life of these ordinary people is very critical, and we must come to their aid.
Well, Mr. Itomi mentioned the regulatory environment the other time, and I'd like you to speak to that as well, madam. He specifically mentioned that, look, if a micro, small, and medium enterprise practitioner or owner is having some regulatory challenges, that the laws are different now, and we should test the laws by engaging the services of a legal practitioner and, you know, fight whatever the cause may be with these regulatory agencies. Well, it sounds like a good idea on the one hand, but how easily, madam, do you think that would be embraced by a micro, small, and medium enterprise owner who is already having difficulty doing business, but now is being frustrated by a regulatory agency and is now being advised to pursue a legal cause to redress whatever the challenge is? What's your take on that?
Yes, my take is that going the legal way does not necessarily bring about frustration. In fact, presently, there are lots of disputes that have been resolved through mediation. You know, we have different alternative dispute resolution processes, and the judiciary is bringing that even to everybody that needs to settle one dispute or the other. You have the arbitration, you have the mediation, you have, you know, you have others who can give you expert opinions. You have different opportunities. I want to commend the Lagos State government because I know that they have gone far. Even the chambers are also deploying this means of settling the disputes in their various jurisdictions, so that the increase in the dispute and the filings that we have can be reduced considerably. That being said, I also would want to advocate that other organizations, the business membership organization, can speak on behalf of their members, and they can provide, you know, a department where people can go at little or no fee to lay their issues before this group of people who would then take up the case on their behalf, you know. And we have a lot of those being settled, especially things to do with land matters, you know, civil matters, and so on and so forth. That has helped considerably, but we need to increase the tempo. Yes. For issues that are very, very critical, it's also very important to go to the necessary avenues for settling the dispute, especially if you have specified the process of settling dispute in any contract you are having with any business partner. And that I would advocate. It is important for SMEs. If you are going to go into any business, you must read through the lines. If you don't read through the lines, you go and sign anything, you can expose your business to a lot of risk. You can expose your business to demurrage if you are not careful, especially in taking loans. If you want to take loans, it is important. It is cheaper for you to allow your lawyers to look through the papers before you sign than, you know, trying to find a way to settle the dispute thereafter. So, like they say generally, there are some people you cannot run away from. You can't run away from your doctor. You can't run away from your lawyers. They are very essential to your life. Thank you. Well,
that's very, very interesting when you put it that way. But, you know, when we consider that information put out by the PEBEC office that 96.9% of the MSMEs in Nigeria are in the micro cadre, affordability of legal services would be something. But, that also raises another question, which I'd like to take to Mr. Etomi. The latest report from the PEBEC office says that Gombe is at the top position of the states with the ease of doing business in Nigeria. Jigawa is second, and Sokoto comes third. Ironic, wouldn't you say? But a breakdown of the report by geographical zones shows that the northwest of Nigeria is the most friendly regional business environment in Nigeria, with an average ease of doing business satisfaction score of 6.36, followed by the northeast, the southeast, the southwest, the north central, and the south-south, in that order. You talked about integration. Well, Madam spoke about, was it you that spoke about partnerships the other time? And it raises that question. Do you see a need for states to collaborate efforts in order to make states themselves, the states and the regions, more business friendly? Because leaving everything to the federal government alone, I'm not sure it's the where we want to go. Businesses are conducted in the states. What do you think?
You're absolutely correct. Just before I address the specific question, I just wanted to build on the point made by Madam, and that is to the effect that there is one of the greatest achievements of PEBEC was seen to the passing of the Business Facilitations Act of 2022. All businesses should be familiar with that act. That is the act that has introduced the various provisions to make it easy for businesses to thrive. It's new. People should get familiar with it. It's so important. Now, to the specific issue of states and collaborations, you are spot on. We don't live in silos. What really made all of us lazy in this country was the advent of the oil business. Well before oil, the states were not just collaborating, they were competing in healthy fashion. I grew up in Nigeria when it was just 3 regions, then it became 4 regions. And the regions looked at their comparative advantages and worked on them. So in the then Eastern region, where a lot of palm produce was their mainstay, they were ahead of the game. In the then northern region, we had most other agricultural products, groundnuts, sorghum, all those things. In the west was cocoa. There was no mention about oil. And they not only traded among themselves, they actually traded across borders internationally. So we need to reinvent that. What just happened with the advent of oil, and of course with the foray of the military into politics, which then centralized everything we did, was that all revenues accruing to the federal government from these commanding heights of the economy were then centralized, and then states were made to go and get share as they continue to do till today. That is just no model. A model that emphasizes sharing as opposed to productivity is doomed at some point to collapse. And really, we are at that juncture. To be candid, agenda setting for this regime, they're going to take very many difficult decisions. As we know, the removal of subsidy for petroleum, for power, and for all other things that have been done is right at the top of the agenda. Those are difficult decisions, but to do them, you must then create alternatives that will initially alleviate the hardship it will bring on the populace, and then you then build on it. So where am I going with this? Let's start with the very familiar topic, power and all that. Power holds the key to the diversification of this economy. So no matter what is going on, we must consolidate on the modest gains of the privatization, and then begin thereafter to take advantage of new legal regime that allows states to fully participate. And talking about collaboration among states, even though today the law says each state can now regulate the industry from generation to distribution, you don't have to do it if you're not ready. You can collaborate with other states that are ready. We just need that. So if you have a power source, gas, for example, holds the key to provision of power to the thermal plants, which today provide over 80% of our electricity. If those states that are aborting gas belts can work with those who are far away from the gas belts and find some ways of seeing how they can get access to that raw material so that they too can fire up. Those who are doing solar should do so.
Okay, but well, just a quick one, Mr. Tomi. My sincere apologies, because we're wrapping up now. But, you know, the issue you just raised now, raises this question. There is no sector that is on its own all by itself. You mentioned the power sector, for instance. We have the Ministry of Power, but so do we have the Ministry of Science and Technology and the rest of them. They have relationships, things that they can do together. The same thing with the Ministry of Works and Housing. They have collaborative relationships, for instance, with the Ministry of Transport and on and on and on like that. All of these issues, or whatever it is that the country needs, there have to be collaboration at various levels. So we are not, as you mentioned the other time, paying so many taxes from different ministries, departments, and agencies, rather than just, maybe just centralizing everything so we don't have to do these things in silo. And the president has often, including in security, spoken about the need for collaboration of these ministries, departments, and agencies. From what you know, what are the bottlenecks to achieving this, and how do we deal with it? How should the incoming administration deal with this working in silos, where one ministry talks about something and the other one, speaks a different language on the same issue?
I'm a student of history. If you go back to where we got this proliferation of MDAs in Nigeria, it was, I think, towards the Babangida regime, where the presidency created almost parallel agencies to what ministries were doing. And you know how bad habits just quickly gain currency, and before you know it, that's what everybody does. So you go to the ministry, kept responsible for something, it's being overseen, or there's a parallel in the presidency. And we've just continued in that regime, and we've created a behemoth in the civil service that's actually creating more problems. It's Hydra-headed, and it's creating a lot of problems. Let's go back to the Oronsai report, which has now come up and has recommended that these things be pruned down. Let us start from there. Let's clear the cobwebs.
Okay.
Prune it down. There's so many things. IT, you mentioned. IT has made life so easy for many people. You don't really need to be physically in Abuja now to register a company. So let's work on the IT. Incidentally, that's the space of the young people today. Many of us are doing banking transactions from home.
Yeah, I think, my apologies, Mr. Eto, because indeed we are wrapping up. I think you even nailed it when you talked about the Oronsai report. It's been famous for many years now. God knows when it will be resurrected. Madam, your last words on this as well, and perhaps to speak to what micro, small, and medium enterprise owners should prioritize as their own agenda for the incoming administration.
I would suggest that anyone that is going into business should have their ears, eyes, everyone open and active. They say there's no ignorance in law. If you default, and you can be penalized. So for me, I would suggest that everyone that is going to business, no matter how lucrative that you think the business is, it's very important to open your eyes and your ears, know the regulations that is guiding your business. You cannot just enter into a business. I don't know how to pay this. I don't know this one. I don't know that. It's very important to also ensure that you don't build your business on debt.
Wow.
If you build your business on debt, that business is likely to collapse, especially if you go through this channel of taking free money from the banking industry. Banking industry is trying, they are supporting, but they have to pay the bills and they have to charge their interest rate. So you must look at it before you venture into business and base it on debt, because all the while you just be paying huge sums of interest rate, and you don't even know when you are signing in. Sometimes you don't even sign anything. Sometimes you just say you can just take 1 million. 1 million to start a business, and then you are paying. The payback is almost like half a million, and they will help you to spread it for years, and you won't even know. You just notice that you are just paying interest, and you are paying interest.
It's interesting, madam. Apologies. It's interesting that, I mean, the angle you're looking at talking about this issue is letting the owners of the businesses prioritize their own responsibilities. That's actually quite courageous, because many would say everything should be government, but at least now we know that the individuals themselves have a responsibility in all this. We have to thank you both.
Just one little point.
Okay, 30 seconds, please. Yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah.
Cost of running or governance. If we're going to make huge sacrifices, when we take off subsidies and all those, the government must give us something back. They must cut the cost of doing business.
Okay.
Don't fly first class, don't do all those things, no jeeps, none of those things. We've got to be very practical. There's a problem, we need to deal with it.
Thank you so much, Mr. George Atomi, Principal Managing Partner, George Atomi and Partners, Director and Chairman on a variety of boards, including the Daily Times of Nigeria, EKDC, NBA, and Nigeria Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, as well as Ms. Olubunmi Oshuntoye, who is Secretary General, International Chamber of Commerce in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of our conversation this morning.
Thank you.
When we return from this break, we're expecting our children, students of Nigeria in Sudan, back home. More on that and a number of other issues around it when we return from this break. Please stay with us.